Hello, folks. We've got some great news. Conspiracy law is back. This is major because we had a contract with Zack Knight where I was not allowed to use conspiracy law uh, in my dealings with the Jesuits as part of our deal when we decided to fight the Gail android. And this is the same contract where Zack Knight claims that I owe him brain-to-brain loving because he had it secretly embedded into the signature line. What had happened was apparently the case, we were dealing with several issues. Zack Knight has stolen my writing money from the Forbidden Abyss, and he's also being tried for war crimes against the human race. And none of these trials are going good for him, by the way. And he's also being tried regarding that contract that I signed, which we felt should not be valid because because I didn't realize when I signed the contract that he had it secretly embedded in the signature line that I was supposed to make love to him brain to brain. Well, now a jury has decided that the contract is no longer valid because Zack Knight has breached the contract because he's attacked me so much. And therefore, conspiracy law has been reinstated. This also means that I could marry one of my men and not be in breach of the contract. But it also means that now the conspiracy law is reinstated. According to my conspiracy law, every Jesuit deserves the death penalty for just being a Jesuit. Because the Jesuit order has been, according to conspiracy law, has been judged guilty of tremendous war crimes against the human race. However, I would like to state this. Even though my conspiracy law does mandate the death penalty for Jesuits, it makes exceptions to Jesuits that cooperate with us and that don't support the goals of the Jesuit order. And I went to Jesus in prayer because I actually had mixed feelings when I found out that conspiracy law had been reinstated because I'm best friends forever with Jesuit Rule 13, who, as many of you know, is the ruler of the Jesuit military. And I just went to Jesus in prayer and asked him what should be our approach to Rule 13 and to the Jesuits. I don't want to betray Rule 13. And I'm actually writing a book now with Rule 13 as the point of view character, so I really understand her. And so I prayed to Jesus for about 10 minutes and said, Jesus, what should I do for Rule 13? And then Jesus seemed to tell me, we're not going to execute Rule 13. So, and my men agree with me. We don't think we should do that. She's done so much good work to help me out in the past year, and she has been so good-hearted towards me that we're not going to execute Rule 13, even if Zack Knight forces her to do something that she'd rather not do. And that's exactly what happened. Zack Knight, as soon as he got really pissed when he found out that conspiracy law got reinstated, and he ordered all the Jesuits off of Church of Gail. And he also wanted all of our Church of Gail members, that supported us and Jesus to leave in other words, we're no longer at peace with each other now. So that means Rule 13 had to leave, and she was crying. I thought, oh, this is going to be so tough on Rule 13 because she's like best friends forever with me, but yet she loves Zack Knight and she can't betray him and she has to leave. She was really crying. But the strangest thing happened. When Zack Knight ordered all the Jesuits off of Church of Gail because, he was pissed that conspiracy law got reinstated, many of the Jesuits refused to leave, the ones that had been living on Church of Gail for the past year. They didn't want to leave. And they said, we're not going. We're staying at Church of Gail. And they started putting their hands over their penises because they knew what was going to happen, because Rule 13 has to punish Jesuits that don't obey Zack Knight. And she was crying, but unfortunately, because she loves Zack Knight, she exploded all of their penises. But I don't think she wanted to do it, and she left and went to go. She's now with the Jesuits on the Jesuit fleet, and they were screaming in agony. I said, Jesuits, why don't you pray and ask Jesus to save you? Because if you do that, then maybe Jesus can give you your penis back. But the penis area has a lot of nerve endings. They were in so much pain they couldn't say the sinner's prayer. And I said, Jesus, please show up and heal the Jesuits. And said, kind of, and some of a piece of when the penises exploded, the penis parts went everywhere, and a piece landed on Terence Jenkins' eye, and he started getting a herpes infection, and it spattered blood and penises all over Brent Spiner, and he's a medical doctor, and he got blood all over him, and he got bruised because of it, and it got really bad. So Brent had to go in there as a doctor and try to stop the blood flow so they wouldn't, lose so much blood they die, which can happen when a penis explodes. And he was in there tending to the patients, even though he himself was injured. That's typical Brent Spiner, though. He's a very selfless person. And I just kept praying, and I actually prayed for 10 minutes to Jesus and said, Jesus, help us to find a way to honor conspiracy law and love at the same time. And if we don't have to kill Jesuits, it would be great, if we could get them to cooperate or whatever. And because I'm best friends forever with Rule 13. Jesus even told me that. But those Jesuits were just screaming, and it was really bad. They were in so much pain. And then we found out that a lot of our Church of Gail members on the Jesuits ship didn't want to come over to our side. And I thought, wow, my men said, Gail, what do we do about this? They want to be Jesuits now. I said, I can't believe this. Are they born-again Christians? Is it possible to be a born-again Christian and want to be a Jesuit? I guess it is, because I believe it's possible for a born-again Christian to be demon-possessed. So maybe that's what's happened to them. They were enjoying the bukkake and all that they were having on the Jesuit ship, and they didn't want to come over to our side. And then finally, Brent and I prayed about it, and Brent said, Gail, I think we should give them the same punishment that Rule 13 gave to the Jesuits who didn't want to leave Church of Gail. And we did the same thing to them like Rule 13 did to those defecting Jesuits, except we used surgical methods on their penis. Anyways, then a dove flittered in, and that's usually Jesus. And then, oh, Jesus is here! Jesus showed up. And the first thing he did was heal Terence Jenkins' eye, so that it was getting really bad. Some green, oozy stuff was starting to come out of his eye, and he fainted on me. Terence fainted on me, and he kept getting cut out of Skype. I think Zack Knight was also interfering with the transmission. But we lost him because he fainted because of the injury from the penis landing on his eye. And Rule 13 didn't do that on purpose. I really don't think she wanted to do that. But as the Jesuit leader, I'm having a time with this video. Every video that I've made so far, the sound gets cut off at the end. What I was trying to say is that because Rule 13 is the military ruler for the Jesuits, that she felt obligated to punish any Jesuits who would not obey Zack Knight. And so therefore, those Jesuits who didn't follow her, they started holding their crotches, so we knew what was going to happen because Rule 13 is famous for her penis exploding abilities. So I prayed to Jesus, said, put a shield around them so that when she tries to explode their penises, they won't explode. But when Rule 13 took off, their penises all exploded, and it was just a bloody explosion. And a piece got on Terence Jenkins' eye, and then blood got all over Brent Spiner. And so then Rule 13 was gone, but she was crying the whole time when she was leaving, and she hugged Terence Jenkins, and she gave us the Nazi salute and headed back to Zack Knight and the Jesuit fleet. But those Jesuits, they sat down on the ground, and they didn't want to leave Church of Gail. So I said, ask Jesus to save you, and maybe he can heal your penises, Jesuit. And because the shield, Jesus didn't put a shield around them. And Terence Jenkins said if we put a shield around them, it didn't work because Rule 13 can break right through the shield with her powers to explode penises. And then Jesus showed up, and the first thing he did was heal Terence Jenkins, and that was necessary because Terence Jenkins fainted, and we lost him during the Skype communication because the injury was starting to get this green ooze was coming out of his eye. And we lost him for a while. He just fainted. And then Jesus showed up. And what happened is a piece of penis that exploded hit him in the eye, and it turned into a herpes infection. And the infection was moving so fast that a green ooze was coming out of his eye, and he was in a lot of pain. And then he fainted. But Jesus healed Terance's eye, and then he healed all those Jesuits who didn't want to leave Church of Gail. There were hundreds of thousands of them, and they all got healed. And Jesus gave them all 20-inch penises. And then I had them all pray the sinner's prayer, and they all got saved. So hundreds of thousands of Jesuits that refused to leave Church of Gail to go back to Zack are now members of Church of Gail, and they all got saved. I'm not sure what happened to those Church of Gail members who wanted to defect and become Jesuits. I don't think Jesus healed their penises, but conspiracy law is in effect, and it means death penalty for Jesuits, but we do make exceptions for Jesuits that work with us or that have been of great assistance to us, like Rule 13.